Chapter 25 is where the lecture is coming from on Russia's Eurasian Empire, convergence of East and West. And I think this is really interesting. This topic. A few years ago, I was working with a Russian woman, and she asked me the question. She says, "Do you think that we Russians are really European or more like Asian?" She said, "I think we're more like Asia or the East." And I'll have to admit, at the time, I was kind of a little confused why she brought up the question and then why she came to that conclusion. And what you see is that Russia has a unique history that explains a lot about the way that its geopolitical context is being brought up in conversation, and the way that its culture blends a lot of different elements, making it sort of unique in many ways. So first we'll look into just the aspect of Russian Christianity, which we'll talk in more detail about. In the 10th century, it converts to Christianity connected to the Byzantine Empire. Look down here, okay? And something that I kind of talked about in the Reformation lecture is that this is the Eastern Roman Empire. And, using the phrase Byzantine or Byzantium is fine, but I think that for a lot of people, they're not aware that this part of the world saw itself, even though it was speaking Greek, being of the Roman Empire, the Roman legacy. There's a famous poet in the Islamic world named Rumi, because he lived in the old Eastern Roman province, and he was basically, Rumi means the Roman, and the Greek Orthodox Church, by even people in the Middle East, was called Roman Church. Okay, and so the Christianity that comes into Russia is of the Eastern Orthodox or Greek Roman Church. Okay, so the Greek Orthodox Church and the Russian Orthodox are the same communion together. This is an idea. We'll explain more about that as we go on. Okay. The Mongol conquest of Eurasia is really, though, what's significant. And we talked about those Mongols. What did I talk about? Every lecture we end up getting a Mongol discussion, right? So I want you to think about that. Mongols affecting China, Japan, Korea, the Islamic world, and here Russia. Now, the Mongol conquests really affect Russia in a very significant way. They isolate Russia from the Western world. Here's the key part. Russia gets isolated from the Western world. They are subject to tribute of these Mongol rulers, but not direct rule. And the textbook points out this may have been why they were able to rule so long. They didn't force religion on them or anything, just simply pay up and we leave you alone, right? In the 14th century, Moscow emerged as a leading city and headquarters of the Russian Orthodox Church. Okay, and Moscow ends up being the kind of cultural center in which Russian elites in the church is going to become significant. I think my phrasing was all jarbled up there, but I think you feel me, yeah? Okay, so the rise of Moscow, or Muscovy, sometimes you'll see that expansion of Muscovy. Here's the Kremlin in the 1400s on the left picture, built in 1367. So the Kremlin's kind of come a long way these days, right? You've no doubt maybe seen pictures of the Kremlin, heard of the Kremlin in Russia. Now, here's showing on the map the expansion of Muscovy. So Muscovy is really a small state of now, you think of just Russia. There wasn't Russia, okay? There were Russians, but there was the rule of Muscovy, okay? If that makes sense. And Ivan the Great, or the Grand Prince, Ivan III. He actually took on the Mongols. He married the niece of the last Byzantine emperors, and he called himself Tsar. Tsar meaning Caesar. Okay, again taking on that Roman legacy. He gained independence from the Mongols in 1480 and tripled the territory of his state. And so here we're seeing the emergence of a kind of Russian national identity. We'll end there and we'll move on to the development of this in the next lecture.